A great deal of attention has been paid to the tariffs and the impact it has had on the Rust Belt in Ohio. But what kind of effect does it have at home? Hello again and welcome to the County Seat. I'm Chad Booth. Today we're going to look at Utah's agriculture industry and the squeeze they are already feeling as a result of the trade tariff war that is taking place thousands of miles from the farm. We start with a look at what tariffs are and how they affect goods at home. Here's Andy Perucci from the Utah Department of Ag and Food to explain.
What exactly is a tariff? Well, in short, tariffs are a tax on imports. They're typically charged as a percentage of the transaction price that a buyer pays a foreign seller. Say an American store such as Smith's buys 100 garden umbrellas from China for $5 a piece, or $500. The U.S. tariff rate for the umbrellas is 6.5%. Smith's would have to pay a $32.50 tariff on the shipment, raising the total price from $500 to $532.50. In the United States, tariffs, also called duties or levies, are collected by Customs and Border Protection agents at 328 ports of entry across the country. Proceeds go to the Treasury. The tariff rates are published by the U.S. International Trade Commission in the Harmonized Tariff Schedule, which lists all U.S. tariffs. Sometimes the U.S. will impose additional duties on foreign imports that it determines are being sold at unfairly low prices or are being supported by foreign government subsidies. It's not always easy to match a specific product to a specific tariff, or to keep up with which products from which countries are facing, say, special anti-dumping duties. The formation of the World Trade Organization and the advent of trade deals like the North American Free Trade Agreement among the U.S., Mexico, and Canada reduced tariffs or eliminated them altogether. The average U.S. tariff is one of the lowest in the world, 1.6%. Recent trade disputes have led to an increase in tariffs at home and significant retaliatory tariffs abroad. Many of the retaliatory tariffs have targeted American agricultural products. Utah's agriculture and food industry contributes more than $21 billion in sales annually and employs hundreds of thousands of Utahns both directly and indirectly. Agricultural exports play a vital role in Utah's economy. Agriculture has traditionally been a bright spot in our nation's overall balance of trade and is one of the top exporting industries in the state of Utah. In 2017, Utah farmers, ranchers, and other food producers exported almost $1 billion worth of agriculture and food products around the world. So how do the talks in Washington regarding trade and tariffs affect the state of Utah and our local farmers? Chad will tackle that question in the discussion when we return. For the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, I'm Andy Perucci.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
Look south to adventure. Look south to beauty. Look south to San Juan County. Out here, the road goes on forever, and what you'll find will change how you see the world. Climb on your OHV and discover forgotten landscapes and vistas that challenge the imagination. From Blanding and Monticello to the cliff faces of Monument Valley, we're open and ready for you to explore. San Juan County, Utah's Canyon Country.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are continuing our conversation today on tariffs and their impact on local markets. This always seems to play on the national newscast, but the impacts at home, as you can begin to see, are very real. Joining us for the conversation from the World Trade Center, the CEO, Miles Hansen, and Ron Gibson joins us, who is a dairy farmer of high quality, really good treats out at his dairy farm in Weber County, and he's president of the Utah Farm Bureau. Thank you for both joining us today.
Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
So I guess I want to start the conversation is there are groups of people that have obviously been helped and hurt by this whole trade war that has just started up. And they kind of knew it was coming and everybody warned about it. I guess my first question is, who's been hurt in Utah? What businesses have been hurt by this?
You know, I think very broadly, the impact of the tariffs that we've placed on imports coming in from China and other places and retaliatory tariffs have had a chilling impact on Utah's economy. And you see it in the agriculture industry, which I'll let Ron touch on more, but also you see it across companies who are importing and exporting. So take one example, Varix Imaging. They do high-end components for x-rays, security, screening type equipment. Their stock has dropped over 20% since the beginning of the month. They're a publicly traded company because their supply chain relies on exporting to China components where they get worked on and then re-importing those components. So when they're exporting and importing multiple times throughout their manufacturing process, they're getting killed by tariffs. And so now they employ 1,000 Utahns and they're taking a look at how do they adjust their supply chain, or do they just take their business overseas? And such is one example of the way that the tariffs and retaliatory tariffs are really having an impact on Utah jobs, companies, but also the jobs that they create.
So sometimes it's realistic to assume that a guy's not only going to get tariffed once in his manufacturing process, but tariffed two ways multiple times?
Yeah, exactly right. So if they are, say they're importing components to manufacture them and then they're going to export whatever they've done back to China, they're going to get hit with the tariff on the import in some cases, and then again on the export into China, they'll be hit with a tariff again.
How do you relate the agricultural side to Utah? It's like, you know, practically everybody that I've talked to who's in agriculture in Utah says, well, I don't sell anything to China, I don't sell anything to Canada, I just produce locally. But it still has an impact. How does that work, Ron?
Yeah, the tariffs are agriculture is extremely sensitive to the tariffs because none of the tariffs that we're under now have been placed by our administration, but they are placed by the other countries as retaliatory tariffs towards agriculture. And so let me tell you just a little bit how that works. Pork, for example, right now has a 70% tariff going into Canada or into China, 70%. Okay, so what happens is we have a tremendous amount of our product that has historically gone into China. So when those animals don't go to China, they back up here in the United States. That lowers the price of pork. When you go to the grocery store and pork is basically free. I mean, I was there the other day and you can get $10 off of just about any pork product in the store. So that hurts our beef market, it hurts our poultry market, it hurts all of our other protein products. Mm-hmm. And so that's the same kind of thing with dairy. When we have a dairy product that is not leaving the country that has been exported in the past, then those products stay in our country and that depresses the prices for everybody. So even though many of our agricultural producers from Utah have not historically been exporters, the prices that they receive for their commodities are going to be depressed because there's more of that product on the market.
Can you relate that personally to me? I mean, what kind of impact has that had for you?
Well, over the last 2 months, we have had at least a $70,000 hit at our farm because of the tariffs.
How is that? What is that in relationship to your gross receipts? Is that significant? Is it? I mean,
it is significant.
Is 70% like half, or is it a quarter?
It's about a quarter of our monthly
So
receipts.
that's enough that it can take your profit margin and make it evaporate.
Not only our profit margin, but I mean, you're seeing, you know, in our state today, I would say that the dairy industry has been hit the hardest by this. from an agricultural perspective. The other industries in the state, the other kind of agricultural industries in the state will be affected in time, just like I talked about through the economic model that I just talked about. But it's not been near as immediate. You know, Mexico right now, well, not right now, but Mexico has been until the 1st of July taking 25% of all of the dairy exports from the United States have gone to Mexico. So when we have a trade war with Mexico, that is a huge problem for us in agriculture.
But isn't there some pressure on the other side? I mean, if China relies on us for pork or soybeans or something to feed their population, they put a tariff on imports, doesn't that eventually catch up with them?
Yeah, like all disputes or battles or wars, and I don't know exactly if we call this a trade war or a trade dispute or exactly where we are on that continuum, but like in all wars, there's casualties and there's losses on both sides. And so there's no question that in China, they are feeling the impact of the tariffs that they have put in place. I read one article, I believe it was in Reuters a few days ago, talking about looking into November and December, there's question as to whether or not there's going to be a soybean shortage in China itself. So there's no question there's costs on both sides. I think that what is really important as policymakers is to make sure we have a frank understanding of what the costs of the policy really are, and then that we have a clear understanding of what the objectives are of the policy. And then we can ask ourselves, how do we achieve those objectives with the least amount of cost to American companies and consumers?
Knowing that these trade policies were going to create problems, what kind of help has the federal government been willing to or discussed about doing to try and help the agricultural community?
So President Trump announced on the 24th of July a $12 billion aid package for agriculture, and it was registered in the Federal Registry on the 24th of August and just open for sign up today on the 4th of September. Now, you know, I talked earlier about how my family farm has been hit. We feel like $70,000 a month over the last 2 months. The trade, or this $12 billion package that President Trump put into action is gonna help me about $4,000 a month. So the reality is, it sounds like a big number, but it's really not going to help agriculture the way that people think it might, and it's definitely not the kind of subsidy that people think that it might be. And so really what we have to understand about this, I think the most important point is these relationships that we have built as an industry, and all of our industries, are with people. You know, when we talk about trading with Mexico, we're not trading with a country, we're trading with people and businesses in Mexico. And we have those trade relationships that have been built over decades. And when the government gets in the way of this and puts taxes on these kind of things, it ruins and breaks those relationships and gives other people and other businesses in other countries opportunities to come in and take our markets. And it's extremely concerning to me about all the agricultural markets. One thing that we're noticing in our business right now is that the contracts for grain to go to China are extremely, they're just not forward contracting like they normally do. So, you know, China brought in last year, they got 2/3 of their soybeans from the United States. So think about that, 2/3 of their soybeans. They can't find enough soybeans other places in the world to not buy any from us. But if they only buy 1/3 of their soybeans this year, that's going to leave a whole bunch of soybeans back on the market here in the U.S.
And which will get turned into soy milk, which will then compete with your dairy product.
That is going to be a problem.
That's right. And you know, Chad started off the conversation talking about winners and losers. And Ron, I think that some people who are watching this would say, you know what, it's unfortunate for the ag industry, but if the cost of milk is down, if the cost of apples and soybeans is down, is that good for U.S. consumers? And I'd be curious to get your thoughts on how that trade-off works out. And to think to put that in a little bit of a context, because it's probably not as simple as that.
Well, I don't think it's good for Utah consumers or U.S. consumers, and here's why. The agricultural industry is in its 4th year of depressed prices. We're in the 4th year of our depressed ag economy, and it's tough. It was tough before the tariffs came into place. And you know, agriculture provides something for our community that is intangible. It's not so much an economic value, although the economic value of agriculture in Utah is very big. It's more than that. It's part of our communities. And just imagine a state that has no sweet corn, no local tomatoes, you know, no local dairy and beef. And, you know, I don't want to live in that kind of a state. You know, if all we have is rooftops and we don't have any of our own sustainability, that's something that really scares me.
Right, and in addition to that, you know, the ag industry contributes, what is it? Is that $21.5 billion to the Utah economy? And so you think about healthy farmers, they play a very vital role in communities across the state, and the multiplier effect on what the ag industry is doing accounts to be a very significant driver of economic growth in the state.
There are two issues that brings up, and one of them is once you lose ag ground, it's really hard to gain it back.
It's impossible.
And so then we permanently become dependent on, we're no longer self-sufficient. Right. I think the second point too, just as a wrapping up point, is that most people don't realize that the agricultural input to our state's economy is larger than tourism, fairly significantly, and I think it's number 2 or number 3 as far as economic impact. Am I correct on that statement?
It's top 5 for sure, but yeah, I think it is correct. Ron, you would probably know better than anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, any last thoughts? We're kind of out of time.
Well, the last thought that I have is, you know, just because you might save a few pennies on your gallon of milk, that's not good for you in the long term. And trade wars are bad. We have to understand that tariffs, you know, we have had countries that have taken advantage of our trading relationships over the years. I personally am grateful to have a president that is trying to fix that. We as an organization disagree with his actions and how he's doing it, but it is refreshing at least to know that people are noticing and trying to help fix this situation that we find ourselves in. We need free trade and we need fair trade.
Yep, I agree with that. And I think one final point, you know, I have not met anybody who disagrees with the objectives, that we need to update NAFTA and find ways to improve it, that we need to hold China accountable for its unfair trade practices. There seems to be unanimous consensus that these are worthy objectives, and the Trump administration is working very hard to accomplish those objectives. What I'm hearing out in the business community here in Utah is that the process by which we are trying to achieve those objectives has a lot of collateral damage. And so we need to make sure we understand the costs of the current approach and ask ourselves, is there a better way of accomplishing these objectives? And that's one thing that we as business leaders need to make sure that we're out front at driving that policy conversation.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Appreciate it very much. We'll be right back with the county seat. When we come back, we are going to go on the ground to look firsthand at how the tariffs already in place are hurting local fruit growers. We'll be right back.
Mountains to explore. Adventure to be had. A town to fall in love with. Yes, all that in Park City, Utah. Start planning your fall adventure at visitparkcity.com.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
For 7 years, Utah's Community Voice has been the county seat, a program that looks beyond politics to spotlight the issues and stories that really matter to you and your community. Now you can help set Utah's agenda for the future by joining the conversation. Become a county seat sponsor and help support those conversations that are critical to the future of state government. Contact us at 801-947-8888 to make your contribution to help the voice of Utah be heard like never before.
In a place that is beyond words, there is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon country.
Welcome back to the county seat. Utah agriculture is already taking a hit from tariffs, not only at the dairy farm, but in the apple orchard as well. How is that possible? We find out on the ground.
So here at Cherry Hill Farms, we have tart cherries, apples, and peaches. So you look on this apple here, and this is one that got beat up from the hail marks. And then you look on one that was underneath that didn't get any of the hail marks on it, and you're looking for this cream color with the red, and that's what people like in a gala. The size of this farm here in Utah is about 600-700 acres. Our main market is here in Utah. We sell to Walmart, to Smith's, to Associated, and they've been really good customers for us. I get to work with my kids as much as they want to work with me. I get to be outside, and I get to work with a lot of really good men who come and help us on our farm. Adrian, sorry. We're here now in a peach block, and these trees, this is an Angelus peach. There's not a whole lot on here because we got hit with frost this spring. And so what is here is what we're here to get, the few that are here. There's going to be issues this coming fall that we're already starting to feel as the other growers in the United States that aren't shipping, exporting, are now starting to push their product into Utah and into these areas. And that's starting to crowd and have an oversupply, and so that's pushing the market or the price down in these markets. So that's the struggle we're going to run into this fall unless something happens quickly with these tariff wars. So as we plan for the future this coming marketing year, we hope that good heads prevail and the tariff wars will come to an end, and they'll be able to come to some agreement that opens up these doors for exports. Now, if that doesn't happen, then we have to look at how we're doing business out here on the farm and figure out, what are we going to do to prepare, and how are we going to change our inputs, our costs? What are we going to do so that we can stay in business at a lower price apple or a lower price peach or a lower price piece of fruit? There's got to be a happy medium somewhere out there, and we just got to figure out how to get to it. There's too many good people involved, and I think they will get it resolved, and it might take a little bit longer than what we want, but it will get resolved at some point.
I'll be right back with some closing thoughts.
There are meetings, and then there are gatherings. At the Davis Conference Center, we know the difference. Turn your event into something more than just another business summit. With over 70,000 square feet of flexible meeting space, state-of-the-art presentation amenities, and inspiring architecture, the Davis Conference Center is designed to deliver stellar results in a majestic setting. Take your convention to the next level. Schedule now at davisconferencecenter.com.
This is what adventure looks like, and here's what it sounds like. Southwest Utah's Iron County offers some of the most iconic trails within the state that include 200 miles of new trails to be discovered. Check out ironcounty.net for info and interactive maps for your complete guide to off-roading. Explore countless miles of trails in the heart of Dixie National Forest, the gateway to Utah National Parks, Iron County.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Welcome back. As I have been putting my portion of this show together, I have reinforced one thing that I already knew and learned something I didn't know before. The thing I already knew was the nature of the farmer or the rancher. I've been blessed to know and work with many of them across the state. They are a great bunch of people, and I wouldn't trade that friendship for anything. You know, it always seems that no matter what you throw at these people, how many bad crops, new regulations, tariffs, or whatever it may be, they always seem to have a kind of practical optimism about the future and a desire to stay on the land and do what they love. Curtis Rowley might not have the fanciest office or a private jet, but it's obvious that he loves what he does and intends to keep doing it some way or another. Personally, that is inspiring to me at this particular point in my life. The thing that I learned was that the relationship between China holding U.S. debt and our trade deficit with them are not connected directly. If you listen to the talk on the street and the White House Twitters, you would, like me, conclude that the unfair trade agreements and trade deficits are causing our national deficits. However, as I have researched this connection, if there is any connection, it really is just the opposite. It's our budget deficits that indirectly set us up for trade deficits. Let me explain. Any entry-level economics class will teach you that persistent or large budget deficits decrease gross domestic product, which means we make less and have less to export. On the other hand, when we import a great deal, foreign investors from other countries end up with lots of surplus U.S. dollars. They can't spend them at home easily, so what do? They invest them in our treasury bonds and thereby hold our debt. Our excess purchases of their products create the foreign wealth that ends up holding our debt, about a third of it currently. So as a result, it seems to me that while we think that by reducing the trade deficit, by using tariffs to get a better trade deal, will decrease the national debt, the opposite would be true, as that only by reducing our debt does that capital stay in the private sector, leading to better GDP and more to export at a fair price. Better trade deals won't fix our ability to be more productive until we learn that when government is taking all the money to loan and applying it to their feckless spending, it leaves less for us who actually produce things that we could export. Well, that's my 2 cents worth. I hope you got it, and I hope for the sake of rural Utah the trade war ends soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week on the County Seat.